Hi, and welcome to PACE-TV, the Pace of San Diego. On today's show, we'll be talking about where do you go when the cupboards are empty and so is the checking account. Many of our friends and neighbors are food insecure. In the United States, 10% of older Americans live in poverty. In San Diego, the third most expensive city in the United States, 1 in 4 are food insecure. You might ask, why is this the case? In the United States, for 39%, or 22 million people, Social Security is their entire income. You may think that can't be anybody that you know, but we all are very close to a lot of people who fall into that category. Who is out there to help all these people? What can you and I do to help? Here to help us understand this problem and to offer some ways that we can help is Castillo, who is the CEO of the San Diego Food Bank. Welcome, Casey. Let's get started.
Thanks, Angel.
When was the food bank established?
We were established in 1977, so we're approaching 50 years in San Diego County, and have done amazing work over that time, fed millions of people and distributed hundreds of millions of meals and pounds throughout the county.
Who came up with the idea that this might be a good way to do things or to help people?
So I think that's an interesting story. You know, what's interesting about food banking is that it started primarily in the 1980s. However, the first food bank was established in 1967, St. Mary's Food Bank in Nevada. And then the San Diego Food Bank was established about a decade later, but still at the forefront of food banking. And it really started with the need to rescue food. Rescuing food at major retailers, from restaurants. That's really where it started. I think there was it was seen that there was food that was going to waste, and the solution at the time was to rescue it. And that's when you start seeing food banks prop up and start to impact communities in a big way, especially in the 1980s.
Who came up with the idea that then this food could be distributed to people who might not have cupboards full? I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that part.
Well, it's a little bit different in every community. Here in San Diego County, there was an organization called Neighborhood House, and they were a community organization. And when they started to see other food banks, again, St. Mary's, and other food banks across the country. And the model of that, they took the programming that they were doing, which was Head Start and supporting children and families, and they took that and extended their mission to involve food. And so then they went to local grocery stores then and said, hey, we understand you have excess food. We understand that once that food expires, you're getting rid of it. Let us help you with that. There are other nonprofits in San Diego County that have feeding programs. Let us be the main distribution hub. Let us help collect that food and then get that out within our community with the help of other nonprofits. So that's really where it started. One nonprofit organization doing some good work in the county saw an additional problem that they could solve, and that there were resources like grocery stores or other big box stores that could help them do that. What started with just a few collection sites feeding hundreds of people is now an organization nearly 50 years later that last year distributed 53 million pounds of food. That's 44 million meals, and we're serving over 400,000 people per month. Again, what sparked with a nonprofit nearly 50 years ago to help maybe hundreds of people is now serving hundreds of thousands of people each month.
Okay, and you're not the only food bank in the country. I mean, there's food banks.
Yeah, there are about 200 food banks throughout the country, a little under 50 food banks statewide. And so this good work is happening all over the country. Similar models, everybody does it just a little bit different, but mostly the same model. We're the big hub, we're the distribution center, and then we support hundreds of other nonprofits within our communities with food and other resources.
You don't do it all from your facility in Mira Mesa. You send it out to a lot of churches and other senior centers and other organizations that then help the people in their immediate community as opposed to everybody having to go down to the food bank.
That's exactly right. I think there are lots of misconceptions out there about food banking, and honestly, we also have, and I hear this from a lot of our donors that I meet with that have been given to us for years. They don't all understand the extent of what we do. So really, our model has two methods of how we get food out in the community. One method is through all of these nonprofit partners that we just referenced. Actually, over 450 nonprofits partner with us. They come into our facilities. We have a facility in Miramar and we have a facility in Vista. They come into those facilities. They shop for food, and then they take that back to their programs, to their sites, and really to their neighborhoods. We love that model because it's one, very efficient. They're coming to us and they're collecting that food. They're letting us know what kind of foods they need, and then we do our best to obtain that and provide that to them. But they also understand their neighborhoods better than anybody else. And so they can get the foods that work for those families. Now, that's one way. 450 nonprofit partners scattered throughout San Diego County, and we reach about 200,000 to 300,000 people a month that way. Again, back to the efficiency part. The other method of food banking, or at least our model, is that we have direct distributions. So we have a fleet of about 30 vehicles ranging from your 26-foot refrigerated bobtails to your 53-foot tractor trailers.
Wow.
We load boxes and bags of food up that our volunteers help us put together at our sites, and then we take those vehicles out to about 200 distribution sites on a monthly basis, and we reach about 150,000 people that way. So you add the 200,000 to 300,000 people with one method, and another 100,000 to 150,000 other method, and that's how we get slightly over 400,000 people per month that we're serving. So it's, I think, in its entirety, a wonderful model. But to your question, and I think the broader point, we could not do this work without all of these moving parts, without all these amazing nonprofit partners that know their families and their neighborhoods better than anybody, and we couldn't do this work without volunteers and our distribution sites that we are able to feed so many people on a monthly basis.
The volume, the size, I mean, that's a 90,000 square foot center.
Yeah.
And then you have a similar center in San Marcos that's just
In Vista.
In Vista? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, in
So
Vista.
Miramar is a little over 90,000 square feet. And then Vista is a property we actually just purchased in May. And with some capital improvements, we went live on November 1st. So we're operating out of that new facility, and that's roughly 60,000 square feet. So we have over 150,000 square feet that we're using countywide. And actually, we're bringing on another 45,000 square foot warehouse soon, just because we've maxed out our facilities, and with the shutdown, and relieved that that's over with, we saw an increased need. That need has not really gone down, and we anticipate that need's going to remain high in the coming months, perhaps years, and so we're preparing for that. But yes, a big operation, multiple warehouses, and as I pointed out, those are necessary because last year, again, we distributed 53 million pounds of food. That's the second most in our 48-year history. Only second to the peak COVID year by a few million pounds. Mm-hmm. We're on pace to do something again very, very similar to that this year. And it's deliberate. The 53 million last year and hopefully over 50 million pounds this year is deliberate because that need remains high, and if anything, may increase in the coming months and possibly years.
Does it bother you that the numbers continue to keep going up?
Well, I chuckle only in that we're, I think, one of the only industries that will often say we'd like to put ourselves out of business.
That's exactly my point. Yeah.
That is the goal. But the reality is hunger has existed throughout time, right? And we do hear a lot of food banks throughout the country that talk about ending hunger. And I think that's worthy. But for us, we think a more likely reality, or what's more realistic, is that we provide, we create an organization and we establish an infrastructure that allows us to provide access to everybody who's hungry. Solving hunger That's a world
Yeah, yeah.
problem. It's going to be hard to do just regionally. So for us, is that, yeah, we're feeding 400,000 people, actually 411,000 when we looked last month. Um, However, the San Diego Hunger Coalition estimates here in San Diego County, there are over 800,000 people that are food insecurity. So we still have some work cut
Wow.
out for us. And I'll go back to our vision, and that is that we can provide access to food for all those that are food insecure. So what we're building is an organization that if you're hungry, whether you're in Chula Vista or you're in San Marcos, Oceanside, or Escondido, that you know the food bank is here and that we have the ability to provide the access to food and other resources for individuals and families.
One other thing now, you talked about your partners who are those people in the communities actually gathering the needs for their particular community, which could be either based on an ethnic
Mm,
population or whatever might be the thing. So those people then put together what they think their community needs and what their particular distribution. We did a show a little while back on one of the churches in Poway that was doing this, and they had established their food bank. So that group would go in and say, okay, we need so much of this, and we need so much of this, and so much of this, and then you try and meet that need. So one of the questions, two questions that I have. One, and we talked about volunteers, and we went down and we saw the volunteers, and that was interesting to watch that happen. When those people are putting those boxes together, and we'll discuss this more because I think it's important, but who decides what's going to go in those boxes, and where did those boxes that we saw being put together go?
yeah. Let me answer both of those questions, and let's go back to the partners. I think it's important to share who those partners are. I mentioned we have over 450 nonprofit partners. So these are 501c3 organizations, and they have missions. And the nonprofits we work with, they do other things, but they also have feeding programs. So if you have a feeding program, we'll work with you. These nonprofits range from very small nonprofits to the largest nonprofits in San Diego County that we're all aware of. They range from small uh, church pantries to, again, very large nonprofits that doing other things beyond hunger relief. I'll give you and the other thing I'll point out is um, a majority of those nonprofits are faith-based. You mentioned that church pantry. We have lots of church pantries, but we also have very large organizations like Father Joe's Rescue Mission,
Okay.
Armed Services Y, Jewish Family Services, Mama's Kitchen. All of those nonprofit partners work with us. They come to our facility to shop, and then again, as I mentioned before, they take that food back to those that they serve, and then to our volunteers. We are so lucky. We're so fortunate to have an amazing army of volunteers. In fact, over 15,000 volunteers last year volunteered in either one of our warehouses or out at our distribution sites, accounted for over 117,000 hours in volunteer time. We could not do this work without volunteers. So they build boxes of food, like our senior food box program. Build 16,000 food boxes on a monthly basis. These are 40-pound boxes, generally have about 15 items. Those boxes are built in our site, loaded on our truck, and then, as I mentioned, those direct distributions we do, then we take them out to senior facilities, and again, we reach 16,000 seniors through that program alone. Our volunteers will also put bags of produce together. I mentioned the 53 million pounds of food we distributed. 45% of that was fresh fruits and vegetables. So those volunteers are bagging that produce. So those bags go out to our distribution sites, or those nonprofit partners that come in shop can take those bags with them and back to their location. So that's what our volunteers do, and that's why they're such an integral part of our mission and our ability to serve so many people. Now, where does the food come from? We have a lot of different sources. We have 2 federal programs. That Senior Food Box program is a USDA program. So those are USDA shelf-stable commodities that come from the USDA to us, and then our volunteers help box them. We have another federal program called our Emergency Food Assistance Program. Very similar to our senior food box program, very similar items, shelf-stable commodities. We put in bags of food, and that gets sent out, again, on our trucks to distribution sites. We reach 100,000 individuals, just through that program alone. And so we get food from the USDA government. We also get food from our food drives, and so collections through those food drives. So these are individuals, families, corporations, schools, all it could be anybody that hosts food drives for us. And we'll generate millions of pounds of food through those food drives. And then now, especially now after COVID, we purchase a lot of food. And let me share with you kind of a shocking statistic. So before COVID, we were spending $1 million to $2 million on food. That first COVID year, we spent $14 million.
Wow.
And now we're still spending between $10 to $12 million a year on food so we can keep up with that need. So we purchase, we get donations, we have programs with the federal government. Those are all different sources. One of our programs we built just in the last couple of years through our purchasing fresh fruits and vegetables is that we've allocated dollars to invest in our local economy, specifically with small to mid-sized farmers. A lot of them are brand new farmers. San Diego County has, I think, the most women-owned farms in the country, and has some of the and is up there in terms of having the most new farmers. And so this was an important area to us. One, because when you can work with a local farmer, you can be very targeted on what you grow. For example, we had last year a nonprofit partner come to us and ask us about bok choy. And so we said, that's interesting. There's a community that is asking for bok choy. We went to one of those local farmers and said, is this something you can grow? And had them grow it. So one, you can target and be very specific with what you grow. And then two, you create this circular economy. You strengthen your local farming community. And those dollars that would have gone somewhere else, maybe somewhere else in California or somewhere else in the country, now stay here in San Diego. And I think as we continue to invest in that, we'll be better off as a community. So that's another source where we get our food.
Can individuals come to the food bank and select what they would like? Or is it only the distribution centers, your partners that do that?
For so long, we wanted to direct people to places within their neighborhood. We wanted to direct them back to nonprofit partners. We didn't want them necessarily driving to Miramar or to a warehouse in Vista. But over the last couple of years, we established, coming out of COVID, a client choice pantry is what we call it at our Vista location. And what started, and this is a mini grocery store on site, and what started serving, a couple dozen folks to 100 folks, now we're averaging over 5,000 households that come to our Vista location and shop for food and other resources. I mentioned we bought a property in May, and we just moved in November. We were able to build a bigger client choice pantry. And so when we were averaging 5,000 households that were coming on site to shop for themselves and their families, now in a bigger location, that might be 6, 7, 8,000 households. Again, those are households. So multiply that by 2 or 3. Yeah, 3. I think it's 3.14 is what the average is. And so just through that pantry alone, we're reaching 10, 15,000 people. There are a couple reasons we really like that. It's an opportunity. It's a dignified way to shop, and folks can choose what works for themselves or their families. There are plenty of folks that are fine receiving a box of food and they'll make that work. But think about those families that not all those items work for them.
Yeah.
Now they can come to our site and they can shop and they can pick specifically what works for them.
You know, you keep throwing out these numbers, and they're just boggling my mind, because it just seems like it is just so hard to wrap my head around 400,000 people, 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 people coming to shop at the food bank. Now, one of the questions that I would have is, are there any qualifications? I mean, could I just go to the food bank in Vista and say I need to go shopping for my family? Or would you say, well, we need to look at your checking account
Yeah.
and say, no, you got a lot of money. You don't need to be shopping here. You need to go down to Alpha Beta or wherever. And
Oh,
so
that's a
what are
throwback.
yeah, what are, yeah, who goes to Alpha Beta, right? So what are the qualifications? How does someone,
Yeah.
because I think when we were doing one of the show with the group in Poway, that there was some mention about people having an ID card so
Mhm.
that they showed that they were okay to come there, but and they could go to that one, and let's say that was on Tuesday, and they could go to another one on Wednesday, and another one on Thursday, and another one on Friday,
Yeah.
but they couldn't go back to the same one Tuesday and Wednesday. They could go to Poway on Tuesday and Escondido on Wednesday and somewhere else on Thursday. So how does that fit into what you're doing? And again, where does my family have to be
Yeah.
as far as financial situation in order to be able to take advantage of?
So let me start with a simple answer, and that is no, you don't need any
Oh,
qualifications.
wow.
Again, that's the simplistic answer. If you're hungry, when we will support you with food. Now, the food bank offers about a dozen programs. I mentioned the two federal programs. Those do have guidelines. For instance, the senior food box program I mentioned, you have to be a senior that's 60 or above, and there are income guidelines. So one of our coordinators will ask the senior about that. Now, it's a self-certification program. We're not actually collecting any information, but we are asking those questions. Again, those are federal guidelines. We don't have a lot of flexibility in that. And then we also have the other federal program, Emergency Food Assistance Program. It's for low-income individuals and families. Questions are asked because of federal guidelines. And then again, we're not collecting any information, but we are asking the question. So those are two programs out of our dozen. All the other programs, there are no questions asked. For example, if you go to one of our nonprofit partners that gets food from us, you can go maybe multiple times. What the food bank offers, and this is where we're a little unique across the country, we have a database and a food bank ID card that we will issue. And the idea is to make that as easy as possible for the recipient. So they receive that ID card, and then they can use that at nonprofit partners that utilize our system. And that way they don't have to register or sign up every time. They can do that. Now, the rules that you mentioned about how many times you can come back, those are determined typically by the nonprofit partner. Those aren't our guidelines. That's really the church pantry or the other type of organizations that will set their own rules. Some church pantries say you can come back as many times as you want. Other church pantries, just because of how they're trying to serve their community, will say you can come back every 2 weeks. That's really on them. But there's no cost to the food. That's another rule. So anybody that's hungry that goes to those nonprofit partners can get food and are not charged. So that's just kind of again, simple answer is if you are facing food insecurity, if you're hungry, you can come to us, you can come to our partners, and you can get food. There are two federal programs that are for specific populations, and you need to fit in those populations.
Okay. So there are some qualifications, but not like we need to see your checkbook, we need to see how much money you have
No.
invested in the stock market and those kind of things. So
We understand these families often are in crisis. We want to make it as easy as possible, and we're there to provide those emergency services with the idea that most folks will need help at one time or another. You come to us, you get that help. We want to help you get back on your feet. We try to take the bureaucracy out of it.
one of the things that you don't do is that you don't take certain items, like you don't take candy, you don't take liquor, anything like that.
So we do have a nutrition policy, something we established a number of years ago, and that nutrition policy actually has a rating system. So we rate the quality and the types of food that we receive. You know, we established something a few years ago that makes us very unique for the product that we can't use. We have a composting and recycling center. Again, very unique in the food banking world, and actually, when we built the system, pretty unique, just period. And so this compost and recycling center has a machine that will separate packaged goods, so it'll separate the packaging away from the food, and the packaging can be recycled, the plastics, the cardboard, and then the food we will place in the composter. So that food is not sent to a landfill. And so if we get alcohol, we can throw that through the separator as well. And then again, the food is digested through the digester. That process takes about 7 days. We recycle the packaging, the digested food. We will donate that compost to community gardens, to farms, to schools. We redirect that product, and it doesn't go to landfill. We don't incur those high costs for disposal fees, and we think we then are being also good stewards to the environment. So we see it as a really a win-win. And because of this program, we're able to divert almost everything, every waste,
Yeah.
everything that we have.
Casey, I'll throw this to you. If people want to donate, if they want to figure out if they'd like to volunteer, I know you have a great core of volunteers, but where can they go to find more information about the food bank and where they can help and what they can actually do?
I appreciate that question. And as I mentioned earlier we try to make it as easy as possible for our folks to get food. We also try to make it as easy as possible for folks to participate in this great work. So if you're interested in being involved, visit our website at sandiegofoodbank.org. You can find opportunities to donate monetarily on our landing page. You can find opportunities to volunteer. We make it easy. You can register online to volunteer, and you can see all the host of sessions and activities that are involved in that. And if you'd like to participate in a food drive, that's also an opportunity that you can find on our website, sandiegofoodbank.org.
Well, Casey, this has been great. Thank you. I can't believe that we have covered as much as we have in this short period of time, but I would like to thank Casey for being here today and hope you all have a better idea of what the San Diego Food Bank does and how you can help. We very often think that there's little we can do as an individual, but here is a case where even the smallest amount of help can go a long way. Think about other ways you can help, and remember, just because you are eating today doesn't mean everyone in the county is eating as well. So we'd like to thank you for watching our show. We hope that you'll come back and see us again soon.